come out of Catalyst 2030 so far is incredible collaboration across the ecosystem that just didn't exist before Catalyst came into being.
The thing I love most about Catalyst is that it's an open movement for social entrepreneurs around the world.
I'd encourage anyone who's looking to be more connected with their local communities around social development goals to come along to Catalysing Change Week.
Welcome to Catalysing Change Week.
Over to the host.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I hope that we have others popping into the call shortly, but I can also, just get started with sort of the intro and kicking us off. And we're planning sort of a quite intimate fireside chat today. So really, really happy to see my co-presenters and colleague and looking forward to seeing others on the call. So without further ado, Emma, do you think we can get started?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, perfect. So I'll just do a quick introduction. I'm really pleased to welcome you to today's Catalysing Change Week event. We've called this event The Power of Enabling Ecosystems for Gender Equality. And so please feel free to introduce yourself and let us know where you're joining from in the chat. Really happy to have a dialogue going in that chat as we are discussing. My name is Megan Anderson, and I am the Gender and Safeguarding Manager at Digital Opportunity Trust. I have the pleasure of joining you today alongside my two fellow presenters to moderate today's discussion. And so Digital Opportunity Trust, just a brief background, we are an international NGO that is headquartered in Ottawa, Canada, but we have local offices in Africa and the Middle East and North Africa region. Our goal is to mobilize and inspire underserved and disadvantaged young people with digital literacy, 21st century skills, and really importantly, self-confidence that enables them to thrive in an inclusive digital economy. And our current project is called Daring to Shift. It's a 4-year project in partnership with Global Affairs Canada that is really focused on equipping tens of thousands of youth with digital skills for jobs, business, and supporting them with skills, knowledge, tools, and networks that facilitate them becoming social entrepreneurs. So what is so important, I think, about Daring to Shift is that it really trusts young people as the drivers of their own livelihoods, and it works with them as peer-to-peer trainers, coaches, mentors, they're role models in their communities. And that is, for us, a fundamental part of our theory of change, that we place young people really at the heart of what we do. And, this project really represents a future where young women and men are able to co-create the solutions with partners to be able to achieve gender equality. So at the heart of our work is really working to include and meaningfully include young women in the work we do to tackle gender inequality and the digital divide. But we know that we can't do that in isolation, and that it really requires collaboration across the ecosystem. I heard that mentioned in the introduction video. I was so pleased to hear that, because it really connects to this idea of building this collaborative ecosystem together. So for us, that ecosystem is made up of young people, of policymakers and decision makers, of government, civil society organizations, and the private sector. And we really believe that when we equip young women, especially with digital skills and literacy, and we have this supportive ecosystem around them, that we can really achieve more transformative change. So to work towards this goal, we are convening gender equality communities of practice in Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Lebanon, and Jordan, with local partners that are operating in this digital innovation ecosystem. And in order to encourage collaborative learning and really shift attitudes, mindsets, and actions in that ecosystem, we've also engaged in a process of community-based research. So trying to think about what knowledge typically gets generated, whose voice gets heard, who's involved in decision-making, and trying to place young women at the heart of that work through community-based research. So those researchers have worked really, really hard for several months now, building up their own skill sets, but also lending their expertise to that work. And really, I think importantly, by placing young women at the start of these projects and the heart of that learning, we're able to sort of take stock of the current realities, but also champion, that we are working with and in partnership with those young women. So today I have the absolute pleasure of turning it over. We're going to hear from them for the bulk of today, two of our incredible researchers who are here to share their perspectives and experiences on using youth-led approaches in order to build a more enabling ecosystem for young women. So first, we have Pascaline Ishimwe. She's a community leader in our Daring to Shift program and a community-based researcher in the research work we've been doing based in Rwanda. And she's committed to being a positive voice for youth in her community. So welcome, Pascaline. And we also have Martha Waimiru. Excuse me. She's also a community leader and a community-based researcher based in Mombasa, Kenya. And so, yeah, she also enjoys using her skills and enlightening and empowering her community, but especially youth and women. So welcome to both of you. I'm so happy to have you join us today. For everyone who's joining us on the call, if you want to write in the chat and let us know where you're joining from, but also if you have any questions for our young women who are joining us today, please write it in the chat as well. So I'd love for us to just jump into our discussion. We have a pretty informal discussion planned. And I think if it's okay, Pascaline, I'd like to come to you first with a question. So I know that part of the experience of doing the research was participatory workshops and then interviews in the field. So I'm curious what what's really sort of stood out and what you found out about what an enabling ecosystem might look and feel like for young women. Like, how would we define that ecosystem?
Thank you very much, Megan. A neighboring ecosystem is an ecosystem where young women are able to access different information, on financial resources, different information on women empowerment programs, employment, and different other programs that can benefit them in one way or another. Moreover, it's not only to have access to those programs, they also have to be included and feel that they are a part of decision making, where they have to feel a part of the growth of those programs and be in a position of delivering and different information and decisions. So accessing and being included in those decision making is not enough. They also have to feel safe in different ways. They have to be safe from different way. A neighboring ecosystem is an ecosystem where young women are able to access different information, and then after accessing them, they're able to be included in different decision making positions, and then after that they also have to feel safe in different forms of safety. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pascaline. Yes, what I think you've said is several really key pieces here. So access to information, being meaningfully included, that's I think something you've also mentioned, and being safe. Martha, I'd love to come to you. Is there anything you would add to what Pascaline has said here in terms of how we might define this idea of an enabling ecosystem?
Thank you, Megan. I think Pascaline has put all the points across clearly, because whatever she said is exactly what I also came across and whatever I had in mind. Yeah, matters to do with safeguarding, recognition, the support that they need, and all that. I think she's put it really well.
Okay, great. Yeah, this piece on feeling included. I wonder if either of you could sort of elaborate on that. What kinds of actions or behaviors would remind someone that they belong in that space?
Thank you, Megan, for elaborating to that. There's some instances where young women are already in an ecosystem. For example, in a workplace, they are already hired, but they are not heard or valued, or their decisions are not being considered. So by included, it means that they have to be part of that ecosystem, not just as a position, but also be valued and then be heard in different ways. Yes, that's what I wanted to mean by that. Thank you.
Thanks, Pascaline. Yeah, and Martha, you mentioned recognition. I heard that word. So it sounds sort of linked, I think, to what Pascaline's sharing here around this idea of being heard, the opinions being valued, and being reminded of that while you're in that space or environment or whatever it may be, either a learning environment or a workplace.
Yeah. I think women their opinion, they really want their opinion and their voices heard. They really want to also be recognized as part of that ecosystem. Yeah, because I bet for all of us, if you're ever in a part of a group or anything like that, you'd always want to feel included. You'd always want to feel like your opinion can be heard and all that. So you have to recognize even if the small achievements that they make in contributing to that ecosystem.
In addition to that, they just want to be a part of the growth and then be a part of the changes that is happening in an ecosystem. They just want to be a part of it, not just to just exist there without contributing to anything.
Yeah, the enthusiasm, like the motivation, the energy is there now, right? That's what you're saying. So just having the space and the sort of systems and I guess, yeah, the space and freedom to be able to be a part of that change, I think is so key. So given that those are the conditions that we're sort of aiming for, like that's sort of our vision for what inclusion might look like, what would you say? I mean, this is a big question. There's like many things we could say here, but what would you kind of highlight are the key issues we really need to concentrate on addressing that are kind of underpinning this? So yeah, what's at the heart of the gender inequality issues that you are seeing in your community? If you could sort of highlight what you feel like is most important for us to really concentrate on. Maybe Martha, I'll go to you first for that question.
Okay, thank you, Megan. I think what I've experienced the most is the issue on the gender norms. You know, the way social principles in the society are set, where women should be like this and men should also be like this. So you find like with these gender norms, since the society has so much inflicted them, in their members, we find that most of them are beginning to like make their life fit in that line, in the line of gender norms and those social principles that they've been put. So you find that, for example, we find like during training sessions, we'll have men making up the majority of people who will be interested in this digital social innovation ecosystem. And you have to like yourself dig deeper into the community to kind of retrieve these women from whatever they are doing and maybe show them the importance of whatever you're going to like be training them on and how it's going to help them in the future. And also there's the issue of the vulnerability to poverty. Yeah, there's the issue of vulnerability to poverty. And with this issue, I believe I'd say majority of women are the ones who kind of suffer from this. You'll find mostly the women and the adolescent girls are the most vulnerable groups in Kenya in particular, which in turn may give them certain beliefs around gender roles, norms, and female empowerment. You know, they'll always be doing their best to like keep their homes going, maybe what would be hard for, let's say, meals throughout the day, you know, and they believe that the more complicated stuff that is men. So that still translates to you still have to go dig deeper into the community and empower these women so that at least they get impacted by this program that we currently have going on. Yeah.
Thank you, Martha. Yeah, you've mentioned so many important elements of this, and they're all sort of interconnected as well, right? It's really hard to sort of pinpoint one and separate one out. Pascaline, would you add anything else into that discussion? Is there anything else we need to keep in mind when we're trying to figure out really how to go about tackling gender inequality in the ecosystem?
Thank you very much, Megan. I think Martha has said what I was thinking, but in addition to that is also the engagement of men as agenda champions instead of, because according to different experiences with different people that you met, you have seen that men, it's somehow related to gender norms where men are raised knowing that women are assigned to different responsibilities and there are things that men can do that women cannot. And then this kind of mentality is spread from childhood to adulthood, where in the workplace and different environment where you find that men has a way they treat women which cause to gender inequality. So by creating awareness or making sure that men are gender equality champions can also help a lot in this matter. Thank you.
Yeah, such an important point, right? I think, this piece we often see in gender events, discussions, spaces, it'll be often majority of the folks will be women, right? Because of course we are championing our rights, we're gathering to connect on this, but it's always really encouraging to see, I think, more and more men joining those spaces. And yeah, I don't know, actually, while we're on that topic, do either of you have any reflections on, like, have you seen any examples of that in your facilitation, that, in the work that you're doing with .now? What does it mean for men to be champions, like in that context? Sort of what difference can that make in a training environment? Based on sort of your experience. That's a a spontaneous question, but I think it's sort of come up naturally in the discussion.
Thank you very much. It can make a very good difference because, for example, in Digital Champions, there are some men that go there to facilitate different people, and in the program, 70% are young women. So by seeing a young man who is engaging and facilitating young women about their rights, about gender equality, it really says a lot than a young woman. And another thing is a sign for other men that actually gender equality is very needed, because there are some stereotypes when men see young women who are advocating for their rights, they feel like they are taking different decisions that can be harmful to men, or that cannot be good for them. So when they see some men who are already engaging in gender equality, can make a really huge difference in those perspectives and mindsets and stereotypes. Yeah.
Thanks, Pascaline. Yes, this idea of like role modeling positive attitudes and behavior, so key. Martha, anything to add on that topic?
Okay, to the question you've asked, Megan, yes, it's something that it's something that I've experienced, yeah, because severally in the training sessions that I have, the settings, you find that the male counterparts are more vocal than the ladies. Yeah, so they feel like they're the ones who are supposed to have the opinions heard and everything. So you have to know how to balance that out and make sure that male counterparts are heard, the female counterparts are heard. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you mean in your facilitation, making sure that you're giving space for everyone to be able to have a voice, and that sometimes also means making sure that the young women who are attending feel like they can speak up and kind of hold that space and claim that space. Yeah, that's where I guess your skills as youth facilitators become so important, right? That ability to manage that. Awesome. Well, I think I'll move us a little bit forward. You've both been engaged in this community-based research work, but also, as we've been discussing, you are working as facilitators in our current project as well. And so I wanted to reflect on that approach, the idea of youth-led approaches. We hear a lot about increasing the number of young women that are in spaces like in decision-making spaces and engaged in decision-making processes. So I'm wondering why you think it's important for young women to be involved in things like community-based research or the co-design of policies and programs. And yeah, maybe comment on like what difference that makes to those policies and to those programs to have young women be so heavily involved, and I guess to do those in partnership really with young women. Maybe Martha, I'll come to you first on that question, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay, Megan. So I feel like young women should be involved in these processes. First of all, because everybody always has a different perspective to everything. So if maybe you solely put one gender to tailor the processes and the policies, they will always conflict, because as I've said, nobody is going to have the same perspective about everything. So I believe it's going to broaden the perspective of these policies. And I also believe it also reduces the conflict, as well as these women are going to feel heard and recognized, because when empowering these women, you realize these are some of the things that they don't experience a lot. So you have to make them feel like their voice counts, their voices are heard, and whatever they say, whatever opinion they give, it's definitely recognized. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Martha. Pascaline, any thoughts on that as well? On why is it important to have women be involved and included in decision making but I guess also specifically in this kind of approach of community-based research and what can that do? What difference can that make?
Thank you very much, Megan. It's very difficult to talk after what Martha said because she tried to say and include everything. But according to the experience, personally, what I experience is that it's very important to be included in decision making and these researchers because especially when the researchers or decision making is about the decision that involves us as young women, because we are the one who knows how it feels to not be included. We are the ones who knows like what you're going through, like being a part of it and receiving the feedback from the work that we did. It really means a lot. So it changed the perspective. And as she said, the norms that you cannot do that work, it changed it because we get to go in an ecosystem, then decide or engage or have a contribution in the decision making. So it's very important. And it also changed people's perspectives on young women because they have something that they have done, which is very important and very beneficial to the whole ecosystem in that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for elaborating on that. I think you both said such like resonant comments there about the process. I'm curious if based on your experience in both the project, in facilitating the project, but also with this community-based research, I'm wondering if we can maybe comment a little bit on what actually works to meaningfully engage and include young women in these kinds of decision-making processes, in co-design, in peer-to-peer sort of approaches. We want to make sure that we're not just tokenizing youth and including them just to engage them. That, as you've said, it really has that potential to have that big impact, right? So what actually works to meaningfully engage and include young women? Are there any kind of best practices you might want to share around that specifically? If let's say another organization wanted to do the same thing, what would you say to them in terms of how to make sure something like a community-based research process is inclusive and is going to be bringing value to those young people themselves? Pascaline, I can come to you first on that one.
It's okay with me. Megan, I've seen that what works well to engage young women in this decision making is that gender is not or must not be a sole criteria in rejecting a person or young women while recruiting them for those decision-making positions. Emphasis should be made on their skills and abilities, and if they are matching or they're in the tune of requirements. As an example, we were the young women researchers and we were recruited based on our skills and experiences. There are also other examples out of young women researchers, like in Rwanda, we have a referee called Salima Mukansanga. Is an international referee who was in 2022 FIFA World Cup. She went there she was not disqualified because she's a woman. She went there just because she has skills and abilities that qualified her to go in that. So there are a lot of examples, like Esther Mbabazi, a pilot here in Rwanda. So like an emphasis should be made on the skills and abilities that young women has rather than their gender. And another thing is young women should also be provided with different mentorship and training opportunities. They should have different capacity building sessions to help them to be on the position of delivering those information in a more effective ways. I mean by that, I mean like having trainings before being engaged in the community and knowing what they are going to expect from that community. And another thing is to breed a woman-friendly environment in order for them to feel self-heard, involved in every decision that they can make. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Pascaline. Martha, I'd love to hear you speak to the same question, actually. So if another organization were to try to do something like community-based research, what do they need to know about making sure that they're not just ticking a box, that they're actually meaningfully engaging young people in that exercise?
Okay, for that also, I'd say there's the point of maybe having a representative from the groups that you want to include in your policies and your decision making. Because like you said, Megan, there's the aspect of tokenizing the youths, and maybe out here people are still doing that and we don't know that is a way of tokenizing the youth. So for example, you can't have like a group of 10 adults making decisions for or making policies for a group of youths. So there's gonna be conflict because whatever the youths wanted was never aired, was never voiced. So they didn't know that. So basically you will say like this group of adults, maybe they operated on assumptions and something that really doesn't touch on matters concerning this youth. So I believe if each process of decision making has maybe a group or just a member who voices other concerns on behalf of the youth, because these are people who interact peers to peers, they talk, they share issues, and I bet if they have a representative, this is someone who's going to bring their issues to the table, and it's something that is going to be heard. So I believe that's one of the major key points that I have about that, just to add on top of what Pascaline just said.
Yeah, I think that's such a great elaboration. It's reminding me of the idea, the need for these partnerships that we're building with communities and with young people about like reciprocity, right? So it needs to be, it's not just about building a young person's skill set to be able to then come into that space. It's also about that partner or organization creating and learning about how best to serve that community and work with those young people as true partners. So I think that's really, you both emphasize such key points there. That's great. So part of our goal with doing the community-based research work that we did and are finishing doing is around this idea of creating some best practices about creating an enabling environment for young women. So earlier in the discussion, you did mention some of the issues that you see out there. For example, Pascaline, you mentioned there's issues with access to information. So an enabling environment needs to be able, young women need to be able to access information and access opportunities. So that's just one example of the issue. So in the discussions that you've done, but also based on your own expertise, what do you think, if we were to come up with our best practices now, what do you think stakeholders in the digital innovation ecosystem, so we're talking about maybe the providers of services, but also folks like DOT who are providing training, employers, there's a lot of different stakeholders involved. But what do they need to do to create that enabling environment? What's the call? What are we asking of them to do? If we could create a sort of a list of what actions they need to take. So Pascaline, maybe if you wanted to speak to that.
Thank you very much, Megan. Stakeholders are already doing an amazing job where they are creating different programs that are benefiting young women in one way or another. They are creating different ways of enabling women to have skills, digital skills, business skills, and other different knowledge. But I think they have to put emphasis on monitoring and evaluation of those programs and see if they are already or if they are effective. Because by doing that, they will be able to learn, if they'll be able to learn from their failure or their mistakes, and then be able to get some feedbacks from young women. And another thing that stakeholders need to focus on, they need to create an approachable and a safe environment for young women to be able to talk and share their feedbacks. Because by creating that environment, young women will be able to speak up if they have any inconvenience or any recommendation on what to include that can benefit them more. And this will be able to breed a peer learning where young women will be able to be an agent of those stakeholders and be able to advocate or help other young women who was not a part of those programs. And another thing that stakeholders have to breed, they have also to focus on mentorship. They have to mentor those young women and create a space or help young women to have different role models in the field where young women can be able to learn from them and have different people that they look up to. And that can also make a difference in an ecosystem. Thank you.
Thanks, Pascaline. Yeah, you've mentioned such concrete advice there. Actually, those are all very actionable, I think, pieces of a program. And the last point you've made, mentorship. I don't know if we've talked about that yet today, but I think this is just such an important piece for especially young women, where we talk about that. The internalization of the gender norms that Martha, you were speaking about earlier, that idea of maybe this isn't a skill I should have, or this isn't a topic I should study, or this isn't a space I should come into, becomes kind of the thing we tell ourselves over and over. So the idea of a mentor being able to sort of shift that and really create encouragement and support in that such a tailored way, I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle. Martha, anything to add onto that good list we've started?
Not really. I think maybe a point based on what Pascaline has said. I think it's all about understanding the setup of that community, of those communities that you're dealing with. You'll find out that different communities have different needs. They have different problems. They have different solutions. They have different approaches to these problems. So you just have to understand the community and just know what setup they work with. And there's also the point that you said about making the environment approachable. You need to understand also how safeguarding looks to them, what's their view on safeguarding, what they consider a safeguarded environment looks like. Yeah, and I think that's all. That's all I've got to say about that.
Well, actually, if you could expand on that a little bit, I think that would be really interesting in terms of this idea of what is an approachable space, so this isn't, you're not speaking for every, like you said, this is very context dependent, but from your context, what would you say would sort of define what that might look like, an approachable and safe space for a young woman? To get sort of specific, I think that could be helpful.
Okay, based on that, Megan, okay, according to the experience that I had when carrying out the community-based research, you'll find out that you'll find different kind of partners located in different areas. So you'll find one training center is totally okay. but whatever it's located is where the problem is. So you'll find like it becomes not approachable for the participants. But if you find even participants who go, it will always be a matter of just because there's a program that is going on and they don't want to miss this opportunity, I just have to, and maybe you'll find that also there are maybe our beneficiaries who come from very rural areas. They come from very rural areas where they don't have the enough resources for the training. They don't have enough financial resources. They don't have enough physical resources. So you'll find them that they really come from very far just to attend that program. So the stakeholders should also consider the group that they want to deal with and how convenient it is for them to access that center, rather than inconveniencing them of going to very far places. For example, like right now, wherever I am, it's the rainy season is here, and you find some rural areas, the roads get inaccessible because of the rains, and they really come from a distance to attend the class. So they'll just miss sessions just because the roads are inaccessible. And as much as you want to help them, there's nothing you can do about it. So you just have to pass on that day and maybe see how you can be of help sometime later when everything is just okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's yes, please go ahead, Pascaline. Yeah.
In addition to that, like an approachable environment, we want to mean an environment which is not judgmental, where young women are able to share their feedbacks without being judged, where stakeholders know that like young women have different personalities, they are from different backgrounds. So first of all, they have to accept them from the gender norms and different things that they were into. And then first of all, capacity them and change their mindset. And then after welcome them or give them the opportunity or the space to express themselves and share their feedbacks. So that can help a lot. But with a judgmental environment, they cannot share anything and they cannot know what is happening in that environment. Yeah.
Yeah, so those are both such, I think, important points. This piece around non-judgment and the idea of like safety or emotional safety, right? That feeling of being supported to give feedback and provide your opinion. It takes, I think, a lot of courage for us to like share our thoughts and opinions. So a space that really respects and honors that is so critical. And just to say, Martha, your comment reminds me about what you said earlier about the link to poverty here. So the idea that it kind of creates further vulnerabilities. If you have to travel so far, maybe the risk is greater, or you have less of a support system or network around you to be able to take the steps that you would take to maybe feel safer or more secure. So just to say, I'm hearing the connection there between the need to really make these considerations based on access and how the most vulnerable folks would be able to actually access these types of opportunities.
We're gonna have an question.
Oh, sure. Yes, Pascaline. I also just want to let our attendees know, if you have any questions for either Pascaline or Martha before we end our call at the end of the hour, please write them in the chat and we'll try to ask them. But let us know if anything's come up and you want to ask a question. And Pascaline, yes, please go right ahead.
Yes, in addition to what we just said, stakeholders also has to create an alumni network in order to enable people who have already gained the skills or who have already been the beneficiaries of their programs to be able to know, to track their progress, the effectiveness of the program, and know, okay, yes, we train them about, for example, about business management. Are they really using the knowledge that we give them into real life? So that can also help a lot. And also in terms of a safety environment, emotional safety environment, there are some cases where young women cannot feel comfortable enough for different stakeholders and then be comfortable enough by using their fellow young women. So by creating that alumni network, so that alumni can teach or can help stakeholders to create awareness to those young women, and that can really help a lot. Yeah.
Yes, such an important point. This piece of an alumni network, or also just the power of like a peer network, right? Being able to be connected to others, especially I think on the topic of gender equality, and being able to connect with other women who are breaking down barriers in different areas in either digital innovation or other kind of linked disciplines. I think that's such a key piece. Do either of you have any reflections on that piece of like, what is the power of connecting with other youth on this topic of gender equality? For yourself, I guess that's I'm reflecting on sort of the individual impact of those networks of like solidarity on gender. Any thoughts on that, on like what it means for you to be connected to other gender champions? That question can be for either of you, Martha or Pascaline.
I think I'll start. It's okay. So it's very powerful to learn from your fellow because what you're going through is what she's going through, or she already went through that in the past. So it can create a feeling that you are being heart to heart. So it helps a lot to be facilitated by someone who can understand you, who was once in who is in the same shoes that you are in. So it helps a lot. Yeah, as Martha mentioned, that it's very important to have a representative from different people or different. Yes, so it's very important to have those people who are facilitating you, who understand you well, and who knows what you're going through at the moment. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Pascaline. Oh, go ahead, Martha.
Yeah, I also think the purpose of them connecting is very important in terms that at times they kind of get a source of encouragement. They kind of have somebody they can maybe look up to, they can go to in case they experience a challenge. This is a person who benefited before them, so they can go maybe consult on something. We tell them, I came across this challenge and this challenge. How did you come across? How did you solve it? How did you manage to pull through it and all that? I believe the source of encouragement really works from that perspective, and it really helps them out a lot. Yeah.
Awesome. And we do have one small question in the chat if we wanted to quickly chat about that. The question is, how do you think men can help as allies in creating a more equal society? So we talked a little bit earlier about men as champions, like in a training environment, but maybe more broadly, if you had any other comments on this question, if either of you wanted to speak to that, I think that would be great.
Okay, I think one of them will be about educating ourselves on the you see like the gender norms that are going around. Yeah, we have to demystify some of these things and understand that once you educate one woman, it's like you educate a whole community. Yeah, so if we help each other in demystifying these things, I believe we're going out to have like equal opportunities for both the young women and the men in the society as well.
Thank you very much, Martha. Men can help a lot as Aries in creating a more equal environment, because according to the experience of different people that I spoke with in a community-based research, I've seen that, as you said, the main problem is gender norms and some of different inequalities that young women are facing is from that perspective, is from men, because, for example, they think that young women cannot perform those types of positions, and if they are more aware and if there are areas of gender equality, I think it can make a difference, because most of the time, the huge number of people who are advocating for gender equality are women. So if men engage in that, it can create more awareness. It can also reduce the number of, or the rate of inequality in the environment. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you. As you're describing that, Martha and Pascaline, I'm thinking about what a difference it makes when folks like bring others along with them. So the idea, like on my end, what I might comment is that I can see that as a big impact. This idea of mentorship and bringing others along with you, for men to support women and bring them in and work with them and learn from them, I think would be so key. So thank you both so much. I just want to really briefly sort of highlight one of our most recent accomplishments in terms of this community-based research work before we end for the day. So as I mentioned, we are working on these communities of practice in 5 different contexts. So we have Martha and Pascaline here from Kenya and Rwanda. But recently in Tanzania, we finished off a summary of our community-based research findings. It features insights and recommendations from the young women who were our community-based researchers there. They also engaged in interviews and focus group discussions with some members of that community of practice. So with community-based organizations in the country, with other youth. And so it's I think a really insightful snapshot. It is meant to be like a really youth-driven document and sort of a building off point to really set the scene for what it's like for youth in that context, for young women in Tanzania when it comes to digital skills. And it features some recommendations as well. So some calls to action for what stakeholders can do to create more enabling environments for young women in that context specifically. And we will look forward to the finalization of other of these reports in Rwanda and Kenya as well quite soon. So I believe that my colleague Emma has dropped the link in the chat there. If anyone wants to follow up and take a look, you'll feel free to do that. You can access it through our website there. On that note, I believe it is my pleasure to conclude the call today. But to do that, I think I want to turn it back over to both Pascaline and Martha. I'm wondering, we talk a lot about gender equality. We've talked a lot about it together in the work we've done. And sometimes it can get, I think it's difficult, it's heavy, it's tough discussions because these issues are so sticky and hard to really tackle. So what has you feeling hopeful about the future when it comes to gender equality? Like, what is motivating you? What keeps you going when it comes to tackling such an important issue? Maybe Pascaline, I'll come to you first, and then Martha will go to you second.
It's okay. What makes me feel hopeful when it comes to gender equality is that different organizations and different stakeholders are already implementing different programs and projects that are empowering young women. We see in our country, like, there are a lot of projects that are helping young women. There are different programs that are breeding the skills, business skills, digital skills for young women. There are different programs that are helping teen mothers doing different, learning different skills that can help them in their career. There are different mentorship sessions for young women. So there are a lot of programs that are very beneficial for young women. And also young women are being included in different decision-making positions where they are in parliament, they are involved in as CEOs of different big organizations. So there's a hope. And by seeing myself here today presenting Rwanda, it's already a hope for the future. So there's a hope that in the future, this issue will be tackled like 100%. Yeah.
Thank you, Pascaline. And over to you, Martha, for some final thoughts there.
I think Pascaline has put it well. Also, here, I'm happy by the fact that a lot of organizations are now embracing the gender equality aspect. And you'll see one of their major concerns is to reach 70% of women, and most of the priorities that they have, may it be jobs, people who attend their programs or whatever, they mostly consider women first, and that's like a huge win for the gender equality field. Yeah, and also when it comes to maybe the job market as well, you'll always see that most of them make it clear that maybe women are more encouraged more to apply, and this clearly shows they want to maintain equality. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Pascaline and Martha. Yes, I think that's a really great, hopeful note to end on. Sort of you see the shift. You can see kind of areas where there's this change. So it's really important, I think, for us to highlight that and hold on to that as we're doing our work. So on that note, I think we'll end for today. Thank you so much to both of you for joining me, and to everyone for calling in and joining us. I really appreciate this session. I think it's been so great to hear from these amazing women. So thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the day. Thanks, everyone.